Hello everybody, my name is Barry Schwartz and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, December 16th, and this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com over the past week. First up, last night we noticed, or yesterday I noticed, that there was potentially a Google update that happened yesterday. A lot of the tools are lighting up like fire. There is some forum chatter and some social media chatter about my rankings went up, my rankings went down. That happens all the time. But there's a little bit more chatter than usual, and the tools are going on fire. So if you take a look over here, you'll see Mozcast showing huge temperatures, SERP metrics really flying, Alguru, highest I've ever seen in a long time, and Rank Ranger as well some other tools that are showing these changes. So there's definitely a lot of people noticing these changes. Of course, Google's constantly changing. Google has not commented or confirmed that there's an update. Some are suspecting it's the mobile first index being pushed out even more. Some are suspecting that maybe it's an algorithm change. Some are saying maybe it's a design tweak that the tools are lighting up against. It's hard to know for sure, but it definitely does seem like there's something going on with the Google search algorithm as of yesterday or today. Moving on, I noticed this week that AMP is now in Google Image Search. So if you do searches on your mobile device and you click on the images and you scroll through some of those images, you might see an AMP logo showing up directly in the search results. So let's zoom in here. You'll see here is a Pinterest post with an AMP single. You actually click on here. It actually take you to the AMP version of the Pinterest page. Same thing here. I did a search for Attic Room. This is from, I guess, a website called Decois. And the AMP logo, you click on it, it will take you to the AMP page as well. So it looks like Google's now showing AMP results in the image search results. Talking about images, Google Images now is allowing product schema markup. So if you have images and you want to go ahead and mark up those images with product schema, you can do that. So here's an example of what that looks like. When you actually mark it up, here's an example of the actual output. So you see here's the image result in Google Images, the price, the reviews, it's all markup related stuff, so you can actually get that if you mark up your images with product schema. Talking about schema, Google Review Schema actually went ahead and added a new guideline. You specifically can no longer use profanity or vulgar languages in your reviews. So if you are having people leave reviews and they're really, really upset about their products or their services, and they go ahead and use vulgar languages or profanity in their results, you have to go ahead and filter those out or not use the markup on those specific comments. So that's a new guideline that was added, I think, just yesterday. Aaron Bradley also picked up on that. So if you are doing reviews schema, you have to go ahead and make sure to catch those things and not mark those up or not include them on your website. Google Search Console added more reports for property sets. They announced it this week, so now property sets basically allow you, Google Search Console, to combine different properties. So your HTTP, HTTPS, your www, non-www, your apps, etc., all into one profile. You can combine even other profiles that are not HTTP or HTTPS, like completely different websites, like MDOTs or completely different websites into one profile. So if you have a network of blogs, you want to include them in one property set, you can do that as well. But Google actually added more and more reports for them. So previously it was pretty much just the search analytics report that combined the property sets. Now you have all these other reports like mobile usability, the accelerated AMP pages, the international targeting, the rich cards, the block resources, and so forth and so on. So there's tons of new reports that you can now get in property sets, which make it much more useful, and it's a pretty cool feature. So definitely check that out. Google said there is no sandbox. Google has said this back in 2005. They've said this since 2005 and now. There are obviously symptoms of Google's algorithms that probably act like the Google sandbox, but typically and specifically, there is no Google sandbox, at least terminology-wise, at the Googleplex. And here's Gary from Google saying we don't have a Google sandbox. And again, I apologize for my voice. I'm just a bit under the weather. Google said only a site owner can see if they have a penalty. So there's a lot of third-party tools out there. There are a lot of third-party tools out there that specifically say, hey, here's a penalty checker tool. And people are using this saying, hey, this tool says that I have a Google penalty. Do I have a Google penalty? It says I do. And John Mueller from Google said, you can't use third-party tools to say if you have a penalty. The only way to know is to see if you have a manual action in Google Search Console or somebody at Google like John Mueller, is able to look it up for you. Otherwise, there's no way to actually define or to see if you have a penalty using a third-party tool. They don't know. There might be signals, but they don't necessarily know. Google said you could use a no-follow attribute to help with crawl budget, but only for really, really large sites. This is Gary going with a conversation with Edon Ben-Or, and he basically said if you have a really large site, probably with 100,000 pages or so, you could use the no-follow attribute to define where Google crawls throughout your website, and thus it could help you with crawl budget. Again, I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about that, but I did cover it. Google did say we do take action on rich snippet spam. People are saying, I have been reporting this site for doing rich snippet spam, and they're doing it wrong, and they're doing it against Google's guidelines. And Google says, if you submit a real case that's really spam, we do take action. There's a lot of cases that they get that are not spam related, that look like spam, but they're really not, or they're borderline, and Google doesn't always take action on borderline stuff. They only take action on real stuff. So this is I've been talking about for a while. Not the only one. So basically, AMP pages are cool, yada yada. Google added some really cool stuff to the Search Console in Search Analytics to actually see how your AMP pages are doing. And you can see here, when you have, I used to complain that AMP had a huge drop off in the click-through rate. But now Google is able to actually filter by AMP-rich articles versus AMP non-rich. So basically the top stories versus the non-top stories. So just pure organic mobile results that are AMP versus like the top stories carousel that you slide through. And what you see is people don't click on carousel stuff unless you're the number one listing. So you can see I have a very low click-through rate on top stories, but a pretty better on normal results. Same thing with Elena. She actually noticed the same thing here. Huge drop off in click-through rate for top stories versus non-top stories. But Barry Adams said in his test, he sees they're pretty good. They're pretty close. I suspect it has to do with that publisher always being in the top, like the first or second slider specifically in the top stories carousel. Sorry. Apologize for my voice. John Mueller said that moving your header tags, H1, H2, H3, etc., around on your page is not going to go ahead and impact your search rankings, so don't bother doing that. Google said on measuring speed, you should definitely use the Page Insights tool as well as just plain old, response time. See how fast, according to these tools, that your pages load. So use Page Insights as well as plain old response time tools to see how fast your page loads. Google, for some reason, warned this week that using automated query tools or doing automated queries on Google is against Google's terms of service. It's been against Google's terms of service forever. Google has blocked some tools in the past. I don't think Google's going to block tools based on this warning, but you can see here, Gary from Google saying, friendly reminder that sending automated queries to search engines are generally against their terms of service. I don't think Google's going to go ahead and take specific action right now against people, but he did issue that warning, just to give you a heads up. Google My Business offered, up until yesterday, expedited verification for your Google My Business listing. That is no longer valid, but if you saw my blog post, if you read my stories, you just don't watch the videos, you would have picked up on that and been able to expedite your US or Canadian business in the Google My Business listings for verification. Google Maps and AdWords teamed up, and now they're actually offering promoted places. Promoted places gives you the ability to have like branded icons. So let me zoom in. You can actually see this a little better. You should be able to see over here. It has like a little Starbucks pin or icon. So that's something that's part of this. Also, they have things like in-store sales, new products, services to help consumers decide where to go, directions and so forth, live hours and so forth. So Google's using AdWords to help with promoted places in Google Maps. So it's pretty cool. Google My Business now offers insights into how people are interacting with your photos in your Google Maps listing. So I put some pretty cool photos, including virtual tours. But now, if you go to your Insights tab, you're able to see this graph that plots the blue line as you versus businesses like you. So it compares you to businesses that are similar to yours. And you can see, on the photo side at least, I'm doing pretty well. I have 1.7 thousand views, I guess, on my photos in the last 30 days. And businesses like me only have 57 views on photos like them. And you receive 2.88 1,000 times more views than similar businesses, it says. So that's a pretty cool metric, and you can actually go to Google My Business Listing and see that yourself. Google is now letting, oh no, hope I didn't lose you guys. Google is now letting, you still there? I think so. Sorry about that. Hopefully you guys are still there. Google is now letting business owners control their menu links in the local results. So it's not just menus, it's all attributes actually. So you can actually go to your business listing and click on the attributes tab and say, where should my menu be listed? So you can link to third-party menus or your own menu, and etc. So there's lots of different attributes you can actually manage. Lots of links and attributes you can manage in there. And finally, the Gboard keyboard has finally come to Google Android phones it's called basically Google Keyboard. And it brings all the cool Gboard features. I use Gboard for my iPhone, and it's great. So definitely it's nice to see that Android now has it. It's named Google Android. I think it finally updates all the stuff there. In any event, thanks so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz. This is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at SEOroundtable.com over the past week. Today is Friday, December 16th. And again, I apologize. I'm really not feeling that great. But I got to get through this video, and hopefully there were no technical glitches during the way. Everyone have a great weekend. And I guess I'll see you next week. And then ending towards the end of the year. So everyone, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next. Bye.